Women Making Moves, where we celebrate the moves that women are making. My name is Amy Pons. I'm a Master Certified Life Coach and an energy healer. I'm joined today with Amanda Treppa. Amanda is a rising star in the HR and workplace equity space. Born into the foster care system in Detroit shaped her early life and taught her the value of perseverance and resilience. As an adult, Amanda found her way into acting in New York City. After finding success on stage, she had an outstanding career as a star fitness instructor and leader in the high-stakes market. She proudly served in employee resource groups for LGBTQIA+, women, and Black employees in luxury fitness, working to break barriers in an elitist industry. In her various roles, she witnessed broken systems that left marginalized communities without power. Motivated by her integrity and energy for change, she transitioned into an HR leadership role at a nonprofit organization, helping underserved communities build power. The tragic workplace abuse she experienced became the catalyst for her fight for the Workplace Psychological Safety Act in Michigan and Connecticut as a state bill director. As a mother, adoptee, and survivor of workplace abuse herself, she remains a voice for the marginalized. Still in her early 30s, she has already accomplished so much, but knows her true work has just begun. She will continue to speak out for equity, justice, and psychological safety in the workplace. Amanda holds a bachelor's in acting from Western Michigan University, 6 national fitness accreditations, and will complete her master's MBA in HR management from Liberty University this year. Her book, Not on Brand, is slated for release in 2025. Amanda, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I love not reading bios before because I like to have an organic reaction as well. And beautifully, you and I have been in each other's orbits for a minute.
Yes.
Of course, through our Workplace Psychological Safety Act work. And I love talking with folks who understand what that means. The act itself, the team, what we're all working toward. And thank you for recently sharing your story. I appreciate it so much. I feel like sometimes I share my story so much, or one of them, or all of them, or it feels like I do it a lot. And it's like, is it becoming numb to people? So I really enjoy when people will share their unique stories, because it feels both hard to read, of course, hard to experience, but also it's like, oh, right, this happened too. And your story is exactly what inspired the national marketing team to launch the What is Psychological Abuse in the Workplace campaign. And we're working on that right now, where we're recreating scenarios that what that looks like or what that sounds like. And it can be, as you know, extremely subtle or overt. It just ranges. And it's amazing how the law is going to be like when our hard work starts. And I say that because the enforcement of it, that's what we're getting pushback on already. So I'm so happy to have you here today officially. And I know we've been trying to meet directly. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing my story, and the reenactment, I didn't even realize, because of all the gaslighting, obviously that does occur through workplace abuse, how awful what I went through actually was, until I went to another company. And I started going back through all the harassment training. And I recall going to, actually it was the competitor of the company I was coming from. And I was on a call with the vice president, and they knew a little bit. And I was very hesitant to come on with them to work for them after my workplace experience. And he asked me about it. And I remember I told him, and he paused and he goes, "I have to stop you. Do you hear you?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" Like that numbing kind of telling your story. And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "That's actually inhumane what you went through. Like, you need to understand that." And what happened to me is I was 27 weeks pregnant, and I dilated to 3 centimeters and was still forced to work as much as I asked, and nobody cared. It was really brutal. But he's like, "We would have paid you to stay home." And so and even then it still didn't hit me, because that was about 6 months after I had been terminated from my previous job. But you don't realize it. And it really takes time. And I said that to one of our colleagues yesterday. I was like, it just takes time to realize you're not crazy, and that there are others who have gone through this experience. And the great part about our work is bringing together all those people to really discuss that and not feel alone.
That's exactly it. And that's the goal. So someone actually was like, "Amy, what is the goal of this campaign? Are you trying to get lawmakers convinced?" I was like, no, we're actually doing this campaign so that the folks that are receiving, they're getting targeted. many of the examples, many of the scenarios that we are reenacting are situations in which people will brush off as, oh, that's just them. They talk to everybody like that. Oh, I'm just paying my dues. Oh, they're having a bad day. And I think to your point, bless those new folks that are like, I have to stop you. Like, do you hear this? It can feel, you can feel called out too, because it's like, I don't know if you have this experience, but after all of my workplace abuses, I was just trying to be okay for the next job. So I was actually so focused on getting out of the abuse that I was like, nah, it's okay. It's all right. I'm just gonna get out and move on. So anyway, so I love that we're now surrounded with people that not only understand, but it's validating is like the under is an understatement. The support, because I even see it with some of our colleagues when there'll be situations where like they feel really apologetic or they like want to give feedback and they're scared to. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And I don't want to downplay their trauma and be like, oh, don't feel that way. I'm just like, hey, I'm a different kind of person. And if you ever want to talk through what you're feeling, like I'm here. And I'm also not going to be the experience that you've had so far, but it's like until you learn that directly from the person, it's hard to help someone understand that.
I couldn't agree more. And, this whole thing is a process. Like after you go through that experience, right? Because someone had asked me recently, like, how is it you've kind of like transformed your entire life? Because these experiences can have the ability to reshape your entire life. And mine, in fact, did. Because when I was pregnant, I was really vulnerable, right? Like you cannot let yourself feel certain emotions. It can affect your unborn child, et cetera, et cetera. So I really paid attention to how I was treated in the workspace and in my personal life. And so that had a gigantic ripple effect coming out the other side. I reevaluated my career. I reevaluated my marriage included. Like it really has a ripple effect. And we hear it all the time. People go through things with their families, or someone told me they struggle with substances on the other side. Like there is always a ripple effect. But I think it's validating, but what I love is it actually has informed me. Like there is a plus side sometimes. I wish it had been done in a healthier way. But plus side is with my career shift, I was really picky about my next boss that I had, especially going into the HR space. And she's phenomenal. But I will tell you, to this day, we will be on a call and she once in a while, she said it recently, goes, I see the PTSD flaring up. This is not a test. Like literally had to call me out on it. And I went, okay, I'm all right. And she was like, you're good, get it done and I will see you soon. Like I needed to hear that and to have someone who understood that that existed. And that was a really important piece to me. And also why I picked the organization I work for, which is a primarily Black and brown organization where we all understand it. We've all been in those spaces where we're downplayed a lot for various reasons. And like I said, there can be a good side. We always want it to be healthier, but even me telling my story has been very calculated, very, very calculated. I've waited quite some time because, companies and organizations are looking for you to freak out or to be a shell of a human on the other side and not be able to speak up. And luckily, through actually my childhood, I've learned what it looks like to rebound and how to be smarter than the system. So really, after my daughter was born, I just waited. I said, it'll come. I'm going to heal a little bit more. And I'm going to build myself into a place where I'm unshakable. That if you put me on a stand, you can throw everything you want at me, and there's not much there to stick. And you're going to be held accountable on the other side. So that doesn't happen often, but I'm hoping that with our organization, our work, that really can start to happen and we can build each other up and teach that to each other, learn from each other. It's again, like I didn't freak out on social media the next day. People were waiting for it. Like I didn't do things that people expected, so I think that's hopefully another part of the work that I really want to take shape.
And that's what all of us, and for those who don't know about the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, what we have in place is this kind of national team, which I'm on from the marketing function perspective, that works on the holistic campaigns outward toward the whole base of people that are interested in us. And then we have state leads like Amanda that are really the head of their state. and driving the work forward.
We work together.
You're right.
We don't work for each other.
You're right. The patriarchy, white supremacy, and colonialism and capitalism all rely on that hierarchy and the power over. Whereas we work in a world where, like, I don't want to say that doesn't exist because we're, of course, asked to still operate in that world, but we understand that we're all peers. Who's doing what? And of course, a natural leader takes place, which is you and your states, But anyway, I like what you said a lot about the ripple effect and what happens when you gain awareness of what's happening. And for me, if I might share, I turned 40 and I realized that in the workplace, I was looking for familiarity, safety, more of the same. First 20 years of my life was constructed upon physical, psychological, and emotional abuse. And so then when I entered the workforce, the second 20, I was drawn, like I was gravitating toward those experiences. I'm not suggesting that I did it to myself. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that that's what felt safe and familiar. I would almost seek out those places that were in the workplace that were maybe notoriously the toughest. I was going to get in there and fix it, or I was going to get in there and change it. And of course, what happened was I would get into those and then feel the abuse, and then I would be on to the next. So every 2 years, I was looking for something different. The ripple effect that last, I'm not grateful for the abuse. I'm grateful for the last experience of psychological abuse that I had in the workplace. I'm grateful for the experience for me to be able to go out and explore who I really am, which is a coach, a feminist, and an activist, and really healer and a warrior. And those two don't necessarily, first of all, I was in a Fortune 200 financial services. That didn't necessarily have a place there. That did not have a place there. Warrior a little bit because I would go hard for my team, but I'm grateful for those experiences having led up. And I look back and I'm like, wow, the first 20, the second 20, and now I'm on my third 20 years having broken out of that, more of the same, that pattern that, and I'm using the ripple effect a little bit differently than you did, but like it was the ripple of abuse, because the abuse lit the path for me to question everything.
Exactly. Yeah, no. And listen, like, I understand what you're saying when you're like, don't want to say I did it to myself, but that's also like how trauma works, how all this other stuff works, right? My therapists make tons of money off of me, like for years. Her name's Stephanie. She's great. But I, for myself, am a natural disruptor. I'm going to see things. I'm going to call it out. That's always how it's been. That didn't serve me well with social workers as a kid. It didn't serve me well with teachers because I was always getting in trouble for challenging them. I'm not sorry, and so on and so forth. So it was just, this experience taught me like I couldn't take any more and shove any more down. And it was, I have to find the spaces where this is normalized. Like, how do I craft it? And if I can't find something that already has it, I have to go build it. I have to go build pieces. And I do love my job, being head of HR and doing all that work. That's fantastic for the organization because we're working to radicalize every system in policy and politics. However, I'm like, this is the work. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. For myself, I have the ability to shift energy really, really well in rooms and bring it to things. And that's the hardest one I'm owning right now because it's a big responsibility too. But I want to do this. And it's where I feel my full authentic self. And that really was a moment for me to take it back. After that whole experience really broke my spirit. It broke me as a person. I've never hit a rock bottom as a person until that point. And, with hormones raging on the other side with postpartum depression, I was just a really great person. If you wanted to make feel insane, it was not very difficult to, or not getting sleep, things like that. But for myself, I chose that job because of the supervisor. This is why I also referenced that my current supervisor she's kind of the opposite of that one. But I, for years, kept going after a certain kind of female figurehead with certain qualities. And there were 2 times before that when I was auditioning for graduate schools. And even when I was accepting that role with that company, that I had kind of 2 people to pick between. And I ended up picking the one who I was like, I have to win you over. I have to win this. And they were like, you should thank me for being here. You should thank me that you have a job. As opposed to the person who was like, you're amazing. You are incredible. You should come work with me. Like this, you're just spectacular. It was the love that I said no thank you to. So now I'm learning, no, 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 no. That's what you should run towards. That's what it is. So I didn't ask for it from that supervisor, but I didn't know any better until I had to go break that piece of trauma that was just hanging there. And that's what goes underrepresented, I think, in workspaces, is that everyone has something when they come in the door.
Mm-hmm.
We would love it to be as simple as I go to work, that's it, and I go home. We would love that, right? It'd be amazing, spectacular.
The patriarchy would love that.
Correct, right? They would love that. It's so simple, right? That's like not a thing with anyone. Like you can't, people aren't people if that doesn't exist. We're not robots. But yes, you're right. The patriarchy would love robots. Would love it to be super simple. It was so funny. I keep saying company only because I have a really good lawyer. I actually can reference them. I worked for Equinox, who's under a lot of lawsuits right now. And I've been called even as an EEOC witness, things like that. But what was fascinating to me was there were two branches, and I had worked with one branch who operated in the way that was pretty healthy, truthfully. And then when I went to the other branch, it was the complete opposite, the one we're speaking on. And so that kind of experience also messes with you when you're like, the duality of things. This all is duality. Like there are so many truths that can live in one experience. And that's my biggest takeaway right now. As I'm processing and sharing more and more is you can love somewhere you worked and people you worked with, and you can be like, and you destroyed me.
So I talk about in my coaching, my modality is energy. So I love that you talked about how you're able to shift energy. I've been able to always do that, and I didn't have a name for it. I didn't know, and I've been able to learn that. I read energy, and I'm able to move energy with consent with when I create a sacred coaching space with someone. And I specifically work with individuals who are feeling harmed by the system in any way. Duality is actually something that a lot of people have trouble embracing right now in general, that two things can be true at once. So for instance, I had something similar in the workplace. I felt the lowest I ever felt in my life, and I was numbing with alcohol every day. And I'm grateful for the incredible experience that I gained from that can now help in my business as I start out on my own. I am grateful for the benefits, the pay that allowed me to support the lifestyle up to this point during that time. So embracing duality, and this goes so much bigger, especially in an election year. It's like understanding that more than one thing can be true at once. We get so stuck. Like I'll put out a social post and it'll be something that I feel angsty about that day. And some folks will take away as that's my only truth. It's just opening our minds and our abilities and capacities to consider that there's more than one right way or one true way to go about life. So thank you for sharing a little bit about your story. And we can talk all day about WPSA, but the work I am so excited for is that there will be something to ladder up to so that we can set regulation and compliance in the workplace to be able to add to policy and procedure. Here's what this might look like. And yes, it'll get very hairy down to the nuts and bolts where it's like, you snap at somebody. Is that abuse? Maybe. It's really getting back to neutral on how we treat each other as humans, and then to really eradicate the abuse. So the work will start with the law. Amanda, what moves are you excited to be making right now?
Right now, I'm most excited to be launching and kicking off meetings for both Michigan and Connecticut and starting to really build those teams. So seeking people for great roles. We've definitely updated the website for people to go and check out what they might be a good fit for. I'm really excited, and I've been so privileged. I'm honored to be able to meet with so many amazing lawmakers in both Michigan and Connecticut, and just many that are very progressive. Those are both very progressive states. So that's helpful in this work. But just to be able to start to do our media blitz and get the word out there, because there is momentum and there is a craving, there's a desire for people for this in both of these states. I mean, it's across the country, the globe in general, but that's what I'm most excited about right now. And really having people come to the table and see how we can amp it up, ramp it up, and be able to show these legislators like this is not something to be dismissed. This is very serious, and it can benefit all of us. Truthfully, at the end of the day, it's not that not so nice gentleman, it's my nice way of putting it, in Rhode Island, was pushing back on this. And the things he was saying, I'm just like staring, and kind of like my brain was saying error.
Error. Master alarm.
My
Oh,
brain, I was like, that's all that's coming across, like the red
yeah.
arrow. But just like these misconceptions, it's just going to cost so much more money, yada, yada. And I'm like, actually, people are just craving respect in today's world and culture. That's all people want. And nobody has a reason to sue if you can actually formulate a great apology and actually find a safe workspace. That is so hard to find. And I didn't realize it until I stepped into this role, how much that was really impacting people. We spend what, 90,000 hours at work in a lifetime, they said. That's insane. That's insane to me for various reasons, but it's another conversation. So I'm really excited for next month for people to really start coming to these meetings, sharing stories, making plans, and making a push so that come this fall, we get sponsors on board hardcore in Michigan as well as Connecticut.
Thank you for what you do. Let me know if there's anything on a national scale that I can support you with. You got this in your states, but if there's anything I can do to help drive anything marketing, you know where to find me. To your point, yes, we've found by and large, people will say, yes, we should have the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. And then again, when we start getting into it, they're like, oh, this is going to cost some money. Oh, this is going to impact freedom of speech. So the work we do, the act, is we're really dismantling white supremacy, colonialism, patriarchy, and capitalism. And we're still operating in every system in the US from systems that were created 100 years ago or longer.
That part.
Oh my gosh. Like they haven't aged well, y'all. Is there like a team we can gather to like modernize the Constitution? Like, is that a thing?
Truthfully, though,
Truthfully.
it's mind blowing to me. And I was saying the other day, I'm like, do we not see what happened to all those civilizations, the great ones that all happened? Like we learn about in history, the Romans and everything. Look what happened. You have to adapt or you become extinct. Okay. So if we keep going down this path, and that even comes into an election year, and why I'm so passionate about my other job as well, because I'm like, you have to see that it's broken. You don't want to keep electing 80-year-olds? Well, you got to change something. Like there's something you actually have to go and fix on our nominating system. How we go about things. It actually has to sit down and have someone come in and retool it. And I don't understand, and this is where I get frustrated, how you have organizations like the NFL. It's the patriarchy like elite, right? But they're still also adapting. And they're going out and they're hiring all these 30, the same age as me, like 34-year-old head coaches, which is unheard of. Usually you have to be in your 60s and be so many credits, right? But they're trying to revitalize, rejuvenate, and revamp it. They're even trying to do it. So if this patriarchal organization can figure it out, what are we doing in the Capitol and everywhere else? There's just so many examples, but nothing's going to change until people come to the table. And again, it's about putting the ego aside, which is very difficult for people for various reasons. But that's really what it's going to take. And it's fascinating because even those people, including that gentleman, that lobbyist in Rhode Island, they all even have their own experiences of workplace abuse. Exactly. and don't necessarily want to talk about it or are damaged. And like, who knows? Maybe that's a whole projection. And like, I've got to fight because I'm finally earning my keep. We don't know. Right. So yeah, it's all breaking down and breaking the system. Like I did it in my professional and my personal life. And I'm going to tell y'all, I have never felt better.
Same. I smashed the patriarchy in my world the day that I said today's my last day. And I closed my computer and I walked away. So scientifically, the ego, its main function is to keep us safe and secure. So think about when you as an individual tell your ego, I'm going to go do this, which is like the exact opposite of what you've always known to be true and safe. The ego's going to be like, nope. And so this is, hear me clearly, this is not a pass or a justification of why anyone abuses anyone or holds power over anyone else. I'm saying that because we know the ego is going to strike anything down that's not safe and familiar. Let's take that gentleman in Rhode Island. I would want to get in front of him and say, what about this act makes you feel unsafe? And he might tell me to buzz off. Fine. But there's a reason. There's a reason that he doesn't feel safe in that situation. And so I'm suggesting, because beautiful duality, a person can be harming and holding power over someone else. And to your point, they're also harmed. I'm not saying the hurt people trope. I'm saying that they have learned that throughout their life and genuinely do not know how to operate any differently. Else their world, everything that they hold safe and secure is in jeopardy.
You just beautifully put that. Truly, like it needs to be a snippet and played throughout. No, really well put, Amy. Seriously. That's actually why I was able to forgive my old supervisor. Some people don't know I have completely forgiven them because I was able to step back and really see that no matter what you've been through, I looked around what was surrounding them and I said, oh, wow, you didn't have a chance. Like
Yeah.
you truly
Yeah.
didn't have a chance, and that's feeding, and you're in survival mode.
You're absolutely right. And thank you for saying that. When we get this act, as we go in each state and get this act passed, I'm very adamant. I care not just about blaming and pointing fingers and saying you're wrong. I really want to see something for the abusers. I want to be able to create some sort of experience where in order to keep your job, you must go to therapy. But
I'm
something,
with you on something
so
those lines. Yeah.
yeah, because like right now it's only there are two options for the abused. You leave or you try to fight and it takes a substantial financial, mental, physical toll. And those are the two options right now. And the abuser is always protected. So I want it to be both. It's like, okay, it's illegal to exert power over someone to psychologically harm them. And I'd like to help you as well, to the abusers.
Yeah.
So in
Ability.
beautiful fashion, I want to go to this post that you made on LinkedIn. You actually reposted, and it's a meme from a quote from Thomas Merton, and it's so in line with what we're talking about. When I criticize a system, they think I criticize them. And that is, of course, because they fully accept the system and identify themselves with it. Tell me more.
You never think anyone's paying attention when you repost things. Like that's my first
Enter
reaction.
Amy.
I was like, oh, I reposted it. What was it? Oh my goodness. Yes, that spoke to me so hard because after posting my story, and a lot of people, like I said, I hadn't told my story. And Equinox in particular reached out and were angry and thinking of it as an attack on them. And I was just like, oh no, this quote like sums it up. It's not necessarily attack on you. It's just the system you're put in, and this is what happens, and this is how it goes. Like this is the wheel, right? And I always think of Game of Thrones and the Targaryen. She's like, I'm gonna break the wheel. I'm like, until you break the wheel, this is all how it goes. And I really have been really trying to speak on it's never attack on you like a direct attack. It's a direct attack on what we've been put in and surrounded by consistently. And that quote just spoke to me, and I was hoping someone would see it, and you did.
Yeah, we're talking about it. Yeah, and it reminds me a lot of, and you're in the HR function. It's so easy in our world, ours being our work toward workplace psychological safety. In my experience, everyone is expecting HR to do something about this. And in my personal experience, HR made it worse. So like many people's stories, because two truths also exist. One, today's human resources function in capitalist America, whether it be public, private, corporate, nonprofit, they were never put in place to protect the individuals. It was always going to be for the company. That's one. Two, yes, again, the HR functions were put in place for the hiring, retaining, and firing of employees at the company. Even the most well-intentioned HR people in those worlds today, they're going up against a behemoth because the system, again, is operating exactly how it was created, which was to feed the system that is rooted in patriarchy, capitalism, colonialism, white supremacy. That's the crux where like we all want to get real mad at HR.
I hate HR, and I'm HR. No, the beauty of the organization I work for is my boss constantly says, whenever we're like having meetings on things, she's like, no. Remember, we don't want the hierarchical HR. So let's make sure that you are at this function. Let's make sure we are doing that. And that is something that's so conscious because I'm in a room where we have anti-capitalist training. So we have values training. And yes, this is a very different realm that I live in, I work in than the average workspace. It is phenomenal. And we really try to not say words like professionalism because that is rooted in white patriarchy and white supremacy.
It's saying professionalism. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Professionalism is literally saying show up as a mid-aged white man.
Correct. I mean, these hoops are just so unprofessional I'm wearing.
My curls are so unprofessional. I was told that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that is the kind of workspace I actually am in. And so HR is very different in there.
Awesome.
And I'm able to also raise my hand and we had a recent meeting where we were talking about performance reviews, things like that, things we talk about a lot with workplace psychological safety. And I'm able to raise my hand and go, no, we're not doing that. Like literally, I did that in a meeting and the whole team looks at me. I was like, nope, we got to fix it. We just have to fix it. We're not doing that. That's not how it should go. And that is rare. I'm hoping, and I'm saying so many good thoughts I can out to the universe, that can become a norm at some point. But I will say a Duality, there is one HR person who I experienced who made me say, I don't like the way you're handling this. I don't like you. I'm going to go get a degree and go beat you at your own game. And literally, so we can thank her. At the same time, like it was just how everything was handled with me was just so bizarre. And I think HR thought they were doing me a favor. I was let go from one region and they said, but we'd be happy to rehire you in the other one. And I remember going, who thought that was a great idea to offer? Because that is such a slap in the face, and just the whole lack of awareness and empathy on an HR part. But no, in general, I would actually warn people, like, don't go to HR in a lot of reasons. They aren't there to protect you. I will say, like, if you can't beat them, join them kind of mindset. My brain now especially can function in the other side to help people, kind of like a cheat code. And why I also do coachings one-on-one. I do some seminars I've done where I try to coach on how to document properly, how to essentially beat the system and tell you, well, if you do this, this is how they're thinking legally, and be able to really find a way to protect people. And if I can't do it on a larger scale at every organization and company in the world, at least I can do it on this scale and say, hey, they're probably going to come at you with an email that says you're acting unprofessional if you write that. That's usually their go-to. And that's the things people don't know or realize. So
perfect segue to a plug I'm going to make. The marketing function for Workplace Psychological Safety Act is putting together a resource guide for abused to follow, just like what you're saying. We're going to give tips and tricks, not from a legal perspective, but it's here's what you should start doing the moment you are impacted for workplace abuse, so that we can have something to give someone. Because on a daily basis, our social platforms, as you can imagine, are inundated.
My LinkedIn is actually, I get quite a bit of people asking questions.
As my Amy Pons, but also the channels for WPSA and EWA. It's like, I'm being abused, help. So we can say we have many coaches in our world to help you navigate this. One of the things is like, I don't think I'd go to HR, but it's like, it would be a conversation. It's like, help me understand about your HR function, because we don't know. I can't just broad brush say like, don't go to HR, but like, also don't go to HR. We'll see. So
dualities.
like, go to HR, but don't go to HR. Yeah. So I'm excited for this resource guide, because we will be able to literally give someone something until the law is passed. And then of course we direct them to nela.org to get an employee rights, legal advice and things like that. So I'm glad you exist. For anyone who is experiencing workplace abuse, reach out to Amanda, reach out to me. We have so many amazing coaches and individuals in our orbit that can help you through this time, not just from a here's what to do next perspective, but also we've experienced this and we're now on the other side. We can coach you to remember your unique brilliance and who you are, so that your energetics can stay as firm as possible as you endure and experience workplace abuse. Amanda, what would you say to people both that get what we're talking about and are like, yes, queens, scream it. And then also the ones like, oh, bless you, man in Rhode Island, if you're listening to this right now. What would you say to both about not only our work, but what we should know, those who support us and also don't?
To those who support us, yay. But you are seen, and I hope you feel seen at all times, and you lean into us and everyone who's doing this work, because we're only going to grow from here and we're only going to go up. And that is how change happens. That's how progress is made. And it's going to be uncomfortable. But if we can sit in the uncomfortable together, it gets a little bit easier. And we cut that problem and that uncomfortable feeling in half. To those who don't understand, or they might understand, but are adversaries, because like we said, there might be a little bit of projection. I truly hope that there's someone in their life, through everyone really starting to share their stories, that can shed a little light, that can open the door to a little bit more of that empathy. For myself, sharing my story, especially being a mom in pregnancy in the workplace, everyone has a mom or a sister or a wife or a friend or somebody who has been pregnant at one point or not. And I hope that they can put themselves into that headspace and open their hearts to what that person could go through. And I will give a little shout out. I had one supervisor, a male, who I will not sugarcoat this, is the whole reason my daughter is safe in here and protected me wholeheartedly. He in his life had 4 sisters, and he could really relate and see what was happening, and actually left the day after I was terminated, put in his exit out of principle. But that was amazing to have a male really recognize what was occurring. And I truly hope that others can. You've just got to find it. Find somebody in your life. Really open up your heart to these experiences. And I hope it doesn't happen to you. I truthfully do hope this never happens to you if it hasn't, because that is my greatest wish, because no one should go through this pain. No one should have to be scared of an experience they had 6 years ago and have to have that little bit of PTSD creep in. That's my biggest message, is really leading with empathy. And that's what we really all should be going with. And even from our side, when dealing with adversaries, it's lead with empathy. That's what we can only go on, truthfully.
Yeah, I agree. It's not about like proving them wrong. It's about moving on to the next person that can hear us so that we can get this law at a federal level and get that entity in place that we can start really making the change. So where can we find you?
You can find me obviously on LinkedIn, but also my biggest platform is Instagram. My handle is Treppa is not trippin'. It used to actually be Treppa be trippin' until my workplace experience. And I wanted to like give myself something more concrete that I'm not tripping. So you can find me on there. Always feel free to reach out into my DMs on both platforms. I will always reach out back to you.
Closing remarks as we wrap up.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving light. I've been listening to your podcast, obviously in preparation for like coming on here. And I really appreciate how you highlight so many important parts of our society and women, every community in particular. I myself, I'm Black, I'm bisexual, and I'm a woman. Like I love fitting all the categories, but also with that, not fitting any proper category. So thank you for that, because that is so important, and that everyone feels that they have someone who sees them and feels their experience. And I truly hope that we can really combat so that people don't lose any more of their lives to this. Truthfully, we saw it with Dr. Bailey with Lincoln University recently. And honestly, that's, as I wrote in my story, you can check it out on LinkedIn, that happened to me. I was at a crossroads, and that is a very scary place. And if someone reaches out to you, take it seriously. A lot of people, I'm a very strong person. I can handle a lot until I can't. And take it seriously. Mental health is very serious and not something to be scoffed at or gaslit. So let's focus on that and supporting each other. That's it.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you, Amy.